This is Andre with Faith Meets Therapy, Real Talk Podcast, where we will bring you weekly podcasts on mental health and how the Christian faith applies to your well being. Now, by no means this podcast should replace or substitute therapy session with a professional therapist. If you are in need of physical health emergency, please call 911 or mental health emergency, dial 988. I encourage you to get some help. All right, so let's enjoy this podcast with Andre and Cynthia. Well, I want to welcome all of you all. Faith Meets Therapy, Real Talk with Andre and Cynthia. This is our second episode, episode number 2. And we have a very good topic to share with you. Cyn and I, we're going to be discussing, we're going to be talking about stigmatization of mental health in the church, right? So we want to discuss that particular topic there. Very in-depth, very detailed subject that we really, really, really need to address. And I think it will open up doors for people who in need of mental health. And as well, it will open up doors for the church to know how to properly take care of and to understand and have compassion for people who have mental health. So right. I can't wait to get into the discussion. So make sure you want to share this podcast and whatsoever. We'll be back right after these messages and this particular commercial here.
Anger management classes for individuals and groups. Learn how to be assertive, recognize triggers, stress and conflict management skills, and apply emotional intelligence. For more information, call 1-251-308-1919 or email Andre, ANDRA, at tlccounseling.online.
All right, so welcome back, Cyn.
Hey.
It's our second episode.
Yes.
We are ready. Got to work out some of the kinks, mechanically, technically wise, and so forth. So, but we got our first episode out there.
Yes.
We are good.
Amen.
We are ready.
Amen.
And soon we're going to have guests.
Yes. Amen.
We kind of just land the path and so forth before we actually bring the guests to us and so forth. But we got some wonderful people.
Yes, we do.
That we're going to bring on this podcast.
Amen.
I can't really wait myself.
Yes.
Already invited a couple of people. Not going to give any hints, any teaser. But they are phenomenal people.
Yes,
they
really
are.
Yes.
So cannot wait to really get involved on that. However, what we want to talk about today is the stigma around mental health with the church. You know, it's a stigma with mental health, not just within the church alone, right? I mean, in our culture, in our society, a lot of stigma, right? Negative beliefs,
yes,
or negative opinions, thought, sometimes consciously given, sometimes not so much aware of one is doing it, but it's there, it's happening, and so forth. And you know, this is a very needed discussion because the church itself has the resources, has the ability. We have God, we have the Bible, and we have other different resources and skills that we can offer to people who are dealing with mental health or mental illness. But we got to remove the stigma. Right. So, of course, I know we got different things because you said, hey, you know, you interviewed me in the last podcast. I'm just going to be real. I'm just going to go ahead and put her out there. Right. You interviewed me in the last podcast. So, you know, what about you? You know, people need to know you because in the picture you look different. You know, we both look different in our picture. Oh, yeah. We both look different in our picture and everything. But it is us. They are not models. It's really us. It's not AIs. You know, had the app, you know, put your face on there, a whole different face and body and all of that. Yes. No, it's really us. But you made mention about, getting to know us first before we
Right.
actually get into the topic there. So
Right.
I know you got me on the fire line.
Oh yeah.
All right, I'm ready to swing at it. So
All right. Well, tell us about yourself. Tell the people about you. Why did you decide to go into be a therapist? What turned your heart toward it? I know you already have the love for the people,
right,
and I
yeah,
already know that you counsel people,
yeah.
but as you pastor, evangelist, teacher, all that. But what turned your heart toward being a therapist?
And I think really, wow, that really, I think that the skills, some of the skills, in a way, some of the natural, instinctive skills, has always been there, like listening and actually active listening. I know a lot of times we say just listening, but the skill set active listening has always been there, even from even really as a child, believe it or not. I mean, I can remember different moments as a child just listening to people my age and people older than me, and at times even adults. I was a child. I would listen to adults, just talk to their partner, just sitting there, almost with my leg crossed, just listening to them, you know. And I think I always carry that. I think it's a life calling sometimes. This particular field is just not a hobby that one want to pick up and just do whatsoever, but it's a calling because you are caring for people in a very desperate hour of need. So, and I believe the Lord, He orchestrate and kind of lead you on a path, right? Sometimes when you don't even know what your calling may be, what you want to do in life, you go different places. Like for me, I went into the military, so forth, and all of that. However, when I got out the military, I went to the university here in the local area, and I was actually going to school then for counseling, right? And it's a funny story behind that. First, it was forensic, but then they mentioned about cutting on cadavers, and I wasn't down with that at all. So I'm like, this is not my field because I can't take cutting the you know what I'm talking about, bodies that no longer have life in them, and cadavers. And I'm like, I don't want to see all that blood and organs and stuff like that. That stuff should remain on the inside. I don't want to see all of that. So immediately I decided to switch, and I took up counseling. But I had a lot of severe sickness going on at that time, and so I had to stop going to school. Eventually, I started pastoring, and one of the favorite parts of pastoring to me is counseling. And not saying that it's a favorite part because of people got burdens, but it just came natural for me. Public speaking, believe it or not, is not natural for me. So, and I know some of you probably, especially those who know me as preachers, they were like, you talk so easy when you come to preaching, but that's not my natural place. Right? That is my called place where supernaturally God uses me in that area. Where I feel natural at is counseling. And so I wanted to explore that more, and I was going to go in the area of chaplaincy. However, even in chaplaincy, they don't really engage and indulge much into people areas of emotional, mental hurt, and so forth. So I felt as though I was led to go more into professional counseling. And so, went to college, Liberty University. I actually had to finish my bachelor's from where we are, JSU, and so it wasn't finished yet. So I was like halfway. So this how good the Lord was. He calls me to go to Liberty University, which is a Christian school, and I was able to finish my bachelor's and my master's, my grad, all within 4 years.
Wow.
Because it was nonstop. I went summer nonstop. The only time I got a break was spring break and fall break, and then Christmas break, and that was it. But by the grace of God, I sweated sometimes. I cried a couple of times. Oh man, yeah, it was hard.
Yeah.
But I made it through internship,
Yeah.
made it through that. And now I'm collecting my hours. In the state of Alabama, you gotta have 3,000 hours, professional hours,
Wow.
direct and non-direct, as far as direct contact with clients, and then non-direct. And so I'm about halfway there now. Hopefully I can be able to speed up and get some more hours and so forth. But right now is what you call provisional license or associate license. And so basically, even though I'm licensed, I had to get the 3,000 hours so I can have my non-provisional license, so I can be fully licensed without a supervisor.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's a lot to it. It's a
Yeah.
whole lot to it, as you already see here. But
Right.
for me, it was a pursuit.
Yeah.
It would separate those who like, nah, I don't want to do that because it's way too much, versus those, yes, I really want to do that, and I'll pay the cost and the time and whatsoever to be able to get them into to do that. So
yeah, it's amazing, and I live with you, and I see all that you take on, but it still amazes me of how much you have going on. You're not only a pastor, you work in your community, you was volunteering for the kids in local area, as it's not a counselor, it's a mentor.
mentor in the schools, right?
And then you like I said, everything that's going on in the church, dealing with the members and everything, and
home,
and of course in home, which
gotta
is not
take care. I gotta take
which is
care of my woman.
which is an easy job.
It is easy. It really is easy. Yeah. It's my voice again.
And then later in life, you wanted to change, well, not change, but add on to your career. And I'm pretty sure when we talk about, not saying, mental illness as in what you dealt with, but there are times when I'm pretty sure, like you said, after you cried a little bit here, and the anxiety might kick in, the fear might kick in, the word. So how did you handle that in your own personal life? Going to be a
with all of that.
Yeah, with basically all that, because just because you went to college 4 years straight.
Yeah, 4
and then
years.
You went to college to College of Theology before that.
Yes.
You did a lot of different things
5 years
that I've seen that people don't know about. And in that time frame, you were still pastoring, teaching, counseling. You were still
running
doing
schools.
Right. And
running colleges, other different ministerial type schools. Had a daycare for 18 years, preschool, along with that.
It just keep adding on all you've done. So when that feeling comes on, of like, am I overwhelmed? Do you ever be go? How did you handle?
Most definitely.
Yes. What's your personal experience of dealing with that?
Yeah.
So you're knowing you're there, you're utilizing that when you're having sessions with your clients. You basically understand. Yeah. Even sickness. You went through a sickness.
Yeah.
And it's so much that you could just write a book on. Yeah. But how did you deal with that?
And I have. Wrote a book on
2 or 3 books.
but let me say this, and you are so right. It's okay for a therapist to have a therapist, a counselor to have a counselor. And I think in an unofficial capacity, some of the people who I was under, they gave me those impromptu therapy sessions while I was being supervised by them or wherever the case was. And one of the things they emphasized a lot was, self-care.
Right.
I mean, you got to take care of self. You got to make sure that you're taking time out for yourself, that you're looking out for your health, mental health, relational health, physical health, all that, emotional health. You got to look out for all those different things. Spiritual health, you got to look out for all of that.
Right.
And so I did. I took those time outs that I needed, kind of just step back and so forth. And I did that. And as well, at times, At times, going to the gym, which I need to get back on, going to the gym, or even just taking walks, or it's like runs, or we went bicycling
Yeah.
sometimes.
Jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, jujitsu
Yeah.
is,
All that is
it's my
so
pastime, which I need to get back into doing. But all the different things, it helps.
yeah.
Because you need a balance.
Mhm.
You don't need to keep driving because you're going to eventually burn out, which would be another podcast that we talk about.
Right.
And that's what some of the spiritual disciplines are very, 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 very needful as well. Just sitting back and just meditating,
Mhm.
praying,
Mhm.
spending that time with the Lord in prayer
Yes.
or studying the scriptures. That brings a level of peace, right? The
Right.
Bible says, "He that keepeth his mind on the Lord, He will give you peace."
Right.
And so, forget about all the different things and whatever you're doing or whatever you're going through, and just put your mind up on Him, and He will bring you supernaturally that peace.
Exactly.
And I have experienced
Yeah.
that. So, and doing all the different things is, I run things like a 9 to 5 job, so it's not overlapping
Mhm.
and it's not overbearing. So I begin at a certain time and I cut off at a certain time.
Exactly.
Everything that I have,
That's true.
and I try not to allow it to linger and so forth.
Mhm.
And it works out better for me. I can do multiple things, multiple
Right.
tasks, because I try to fit it all in. Now, when I need a day off,
Mhm.
even though it may not be scheduled,
Right.
I take my day off. I
Right.
separate myself. I say, okay, I need to separate myself. And the Bible said, "Be anxious for nothing." So I
Exactly.
learn how to do
That's
that over
good.
the years. It wasn't overnight
Mhm.
learning that skill, but I learned how to do it eventually because I didn't want to burn out before my time,
Exactly.
and so forth. So that's really important. Those are some great questions.
Yeah.
And so, listen, I'm gonna give an opportunity to be able to share a commercial with you all. And it's a very great discussion. So we're getting ready to get back into the topic on stigma here. And so I want to share this message with you right now.
Anger management classes for individuals and groups. Learn how to be assertive, recognize triggers, stress and conflict management skills, and apply emotional intelligence. For more information, call 1-251-308-1919 or email Andre, ANDRA, at tlccounseling.online.
All right, so welcome back. So good to have you with us. We are now want to kind of shift a little bit because we talk about, my role and my God. I think they'll probably take about 4 or 5 podcasts there. Which I know you're gonna probably bring up again, some more questions and so forth. But stigma
Yeah.
is so important.
It is.
Once again, it's talking about the negative beliefs or opinions that is placed upon people, particularly with mental health. But you shared something with me earlier. Can you share that comment that you said about stigma come in 2 forms?
Yeah. One form of stigma is public stigma. And the next one is self stigma.
So how is that? How did that work?
Well, if you start off with public stigma, I'm sorry, it's like, okay, we're talking about mental illness.
Right.
First thing some people may think when they come to mental illness is they're crazy,
Right.
or they're weak,
Right.
or dangerous,
Right.
Which that's the public opinion, that's the
Right.
public stigma,
Right.
which can also, for that person that's going through these things, it could become a self stigma. So
Right.
whatever people that they're saying that they are,
They receive it.
they receive it
And they
think,
internalize
and
it.
they internalize
Right.
it, and it's like, so I'm not crazy, I'm not this, but you still need help. But because you hear these from other people,
Right.
you're thinking that's who you are.
So, and that brings about shame and fear.
Shame, fear,
Right.
could lead to depression and even worse.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. And this is the thing about it, Sam, is that I was doing some research, some study. I think it's Lifeway Research did a study, and they posted it in Christianity Today, right? And the stat was 92% of pastors only speaks about mental health maybe one time a year to his congregation.
Wow.
If ever, they speak about it. One time a year at the most. 92% of pastors. Only 7% speaks about it maybe one or two times a month, if not more so than a month, which is better than not at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is the point, that what the church does or doesn't do will be based on the leadership. So if the leadership doesn't put it out there and doesn't communicate and doesn't talk about it and don't, and if he or she doesn't remove the stigmas
Mm-hmm.
out there, then it will remain, and people will remain. I like to call them the invisible congregants or the invisible church members.
Mm-hmm.
They are invisible because they're out there in the pews, right? They're out there
Right.
in the chairs, and they have different mental health struggles.
Right.
Whether it's anxiety, depression, relational issues, marital issues, parent, child, conflict, relationship conflict, addictions,
Yeah.
suicidal thoughts,
Yeah.
right? They got all of that going on, but it's not even addressed.
Yeah.
And so they are invisible. They
Mhm.
there, but they invisible.
Right.
They needs are not being met.
Right. So do you think that spiritual leaders should be trained on how to handle these situations when it comes to mental illness?
Yeah, I think it varies. First of all, you can't really engage the members into something that you do not bring
Exactly.
before them.
It's
right?
probably why there's for them, they're like, I don't want to go there because
Right.
I don't fully understand, and it's got to be a right way to approach this.
Exactly.
Because it's so
Exactly.
important. It's very important.
Exactly.
So it's probably a lot of I don't want to say fear, but
And listen, at the same time, we don't want to knock the wonderful pastors out there that does
No.
not bring it up. It's the fact that a lot of times most pastors now is like an all purpose. They try to handle
Yeah.
everything,
Right.
and they get burnt out, and you just don't have knowledge about
Exactly.
everything that's out there
That's
that people
right.
need. So you ask the question, how can we, right? Bring this to the forefront? You can bring people who have those expertise, training, and knowledge about mental health and mental illness and so forth, and bring them to your church.
That
It
would
can
be
be
good.
workshop. It can be 30, 15, 20, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever, on your Sunday morning, or like I said, different workshops or platform that you may be able to give them, or even you can have a group, you know what I'm saying, where people may have addiction or recovery,
Mm-hmm.
like Celebrate Recovery or AANA.
Mm-hmm.
They could be in your church. They can have meetings. And so people will feel that, hey, my church does this.
Mm-hmm.
They have this available.
Mm-hmm.
And so that means they support.
Mm-hmm.
So I can go there. It's a safe
Right.
place for me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just getting more involved intentionally
Mhm.
and then open that discussion up.
Right. Mhm.
Yeah.
So that will help the ones that's hesitant about seeking help.
Yeah.
That door will be open for them. Like,
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
that opportunity is here.
Right.
And wasn't knocking leaders, but they get a better understanding
Right,
how it
right.
works. Because I'm pretty sure, like in our church, we'll may see something, but we're not going to go and like, hey, you need this.
Right.
We want to open up a door. Like, here's an opportunity. If you feel this way, you may be going through this. We have this door is open for you.
Right.
And you feel free to come in and da 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 da. And so
Yeah.
a lot of church, probably would want that.
If we would open up the dialogue a little bit more, the necessity, the need for mental health
Mm-hmm.
in the church, we would treat it a whole lot differently. As you
Mhm.
just say, there's stigmas. And so when you look at the fact that, okay, for instance, if someone had to have surgery on their leg and so forth whatsoever, and they were a working person, and the recovery going to be long. Sometimes the church member would send something to them. They would go there, kind of help out around the house, around the yard, because they can't walk, and recovery going to be long, and so forth and all of that. We recognize that. We recognize when there's no shame if somebody got diabetes. There's no shame if someone have arthritis. There's no shame. There's no fear of that person confessing that. But in the same instance, someone who just been released from the hospital from suicide attempts won't get that basket, won't get that coming visitation and so forth and everything else. And I'm not saying that because the church doesn't care, doesn't have compassion, but they don't know how to handle, they don't know how to approach something like that, And so, people sometimes they would come down, they like, hey, I need prayer for arthritis, I need prayer for this tumor. And people feel comfortable in sharing that. How many people actually come down and say, hey, I need prayer because I've been thinking about suicide.
Yeah.
I need prayer because I've been depressed. Right? Because it's that fear and that shame.
Right.
Even, let's say, marital issue. A lot of people don't want to show that their marriage have different issues.
Right.
So they just put on a good, wonderful, beautiful front. Everything is great, and it's not. And there needs to be help available for everyone, including the invisible church members.
How about the open conversations? How do we promote open conversations to have them to be comfortable, even just to say they need help in those areas that's silent?
Yeah.
How do we promote those open conversations?
Even if I have a dual role. I'm a pastor of this church. And I'm a professional counselor, right? However, for me, and I would encourage others to at least consider this, still bringing other people. I would still bring in other people that are professional, particularly of the faith, and be able to hold a forum, workshop, wherever the case may be, so they can feel comfortable communicating to someone else and walking into that as well. And they can be able to have that conversation piece, ask questions, and so forth and everything else.
Right.
Then that way, they won't feel as though that, hey, this is my pastor, and he asking this and that question and so forth. We will actually show there are resources.
Right.
It's okay.
Yeah.
To connect with a therapist.
Yeah.
It's okay to connect with a counselor.
Yeah.
Or a psychiatrist.
Try to cancel out that stigma.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's okay.
Right.
And make that the pastor should be a bridge between the people who in need of mental health, that is okay, and the people who can provide the resources.
Right.
And make that available. Be intentional about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's important that we try to engage in that conversation, even by way of mention, because it's in the Bible, right?
That's right.
It's in the Bible. Jesus dealt with a person that have anxiety. He said, "Come all unto me that are heavy laden and burdened." What is that? It could be anxiety. It could be depression. Luke chapter 3, or is it 3? Or Luke chapter 4 and 18, mention about the Spirit of the Lord is upon me. He has anointed me to preach the gospel, right? To the poor and to the brokenhearted, right? So there's some people out there that are brokenhearted.
But some people,
depression and so forth.
Yeah, some people, when it comes to knowing God, there's a lot of people we have to minister to let them know that Jesus do love them.
Right.
And a lot of people, I know I was one of them before I got into the church, learn more about him, having a relationship with him. You can't do this, you can't do this, because God is an angry God, and he's gonna smite you down because you cross the street the wrong way, something like that, and that could weigh mentally on you.
Yeah.
That can be a burden to the point, just something like that.
Right.
And but they don't know about.
Yeah, because they believe, and sometimes it stems from the church, and sometimes it's from one growing up as well,
Right.
right? And when people perceive that God is angry all the time, and all of this and so forth, and in relation to mental health, and they feel punished or ashamed or all of this type of stuff, and they connect that to the church.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, like I say, it comes from growing up, because sometimes we used to say to our kids, behave, when it's lightning and
Yeah.
thundering, God don't like that, lightning gonna hit you, or God don't like ugly, and all of this type
Yeah.
of stuff, we used to say growing up.
Yeah.
And what do? We are misrepresenting God.
Yeah.
We are misrepresenting Christ, as though he's up there looking to hammer down
Yeah.
on you, right?
Right.
He didn't do that. Jesus did not save us from an angry father. That's a wrong perception that is out there.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus saved us from us to show us how much the Father cares. That's what he
Yeah.
did. And as you said, when we represent to the invisible church members, people who are in need of mental health,
Yeah.
we let them know that our Father in us have compassion, care, and understanding.
Mm-hmm.
We understand what you're going through.
Right.
We care about what you're going through, and we will show compassion
Yeah.
for you.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is not attached to sin,
Exactly.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Some people, listen, some things happen to your brain that have nothing to do with sin. Nothing at all. Not the act of sin in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes things happen biologically. Sometimes things happen in your life,
Yeah.
and you don't know how to deal with it.
Exactly.
Right? What we
Right.
said the last time, what
Right.
happened to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I know we almost at the lab, but do you got something to share?
Oh, not right at this moment.
This has been a quick broadcast. I mean, it went by. I mean, we are honestly out of time, and we can honestly talk about this a little bit more, because
Yeah,
it's so
we
needful
can.
to be talked about,
Mhm.
right? It's so much to unpack here. We try to unpack it in less than 28 to 30 minutes. It's
I
a
do
lot.
one thing.
Mhm.
Do not become your illness.
Yeah,
Do not
don't become your
your
diagnosis.
Don't
right?
become your
your
diagnosis.
illness.
You are not your illness.
Yeah.
You know,
You
that's
have,
very important.
yeah, you have a disorder. That does not make that you.
That is
know what
not
I'm saying?
you, you know.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
Example, like, don't say I'm bipolar. Like, don't say that.
Right.
You're not.
I have
Yeah, you know.
a bipolar disorder.
Exactly.
Right?
Don't become your
You are,
illness.
you are not your
not.
diagnosis. Right.
That's one thing to stop that self-stigma.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
Exactly. That
You
self
know,
stigma.
it's
Right.
so
That's so
important.
good. That is
Mhm.
good. That is really good. And it's almost the same thing as saying, we had to fill out that little bubble on the application. Are you single, married,
Yeah.
divorced, whatsoever? Hey, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Even you've been through divorce, don't put down divorce. You're
Yeah.
single. You know what I'm saying? You are not your past. You are not your pain. You are not your struggle, and you are
No.
not your diagnosis.
You are
right?
loved by God.
Amen.
He
Praise
created
God.
you. Yes.
All right, we are completely out of time. Past
Wow.
our time. It has been good. It's been wonderful.
Good.
As I would say in every podcast, if you are needing help of mental health, if you need physical help right now, emergency crisis, dial 911. Right? If you need mental health, it's in a crisis right now. Dial 988. However, I will encourage you to seek professional help from mental health counselor, psychiatrist, and so forth. If your preference is Christian, definitely go that route. But no matter what you do, get help.
Yes.
Okay? All right. Love you, and I'll talk to you on the next podcast. All right. Bye-bye.
Anger management classes for individuals and groups. Learn how to be assertive, recognize triggers, stress and conflict management skills, and apply emotional intelligence. For more information, call 1-251-308-1919 or email Andre, ANDRA, at tlccounseling.online.